Hello again, welcome back to Asgard, and welcome to our Misty World Spotlight tutorial series. It's going to be kind of in the same vein as the Between Lands tutorial series, and it was requested that we do a series like that covering, just the Misty World. So we're going to be doing that. And currently the only mods in at the moment are just like 6 quality of life sort of things, and then Misty World. So there's really no additional content or anything like that. You're going to be looking at just straight up pure Misty World in its very default settings. So the first thing to note whenever you log into a world that has the Misty World, you're going to get the Quick Eye advancement. And this says, last night you noticed strange stones in the hands of an Enderman. Now, as far as Misty World goes, generally, as far as progression, this is where you're going to be following, is the intended path. Look at the advancements, and you can kind of see what you're supposed to do. Now, to actually reach the Misty World, what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to kill some Endermen. So let me just spawn a few of these guys. And you could see that Enderman, the first one I killed, dropped these 2 stones. Weathered stone and mossy stone. And the description here, the little flavor text bit, is actually very important. It says, mossy stone on the upper side can be seen traces of gold. Weathered stone on the lower side can be seen traces of gold. So what we're going to want to do now is just take ourselves a gold block and take a look at the one that says on the upper side can be seen traces of gold. You're going to place that one down. That's the mossy stone, and you can see kind of some gold residue there. On top of that, it's going to be a block of gold, and then on top of that is the weathered stone that says on the lower side can be seen traces of gold. So for example, you can see there's some gold residue there. And then if we place that gold block, boom, advancement made, gold rush, and we can now enter the Misty World. Bear in mind that you do get a small explosion, so don't place it near anything too valuable, because it can get exploded. So if we step on inside, it's going to load up. Sometimes it does take a little bit. Just be patient. If you have a lot of mods present, it can take a little while before you're transported over. But now we are in the Misty World proper. That's simple. And if we open up our advancements, I'm not going to be going through all the advancements, but I want to show you that it does open up a lot of sections here related to the Misty World, that are now available to you once you get first breath, embark into the Misty World. And the Misty World is basically one giant dimension of islands atop a floating mist sea, more or less. So if we go off to the edge of this island, you can see over there is the mist, right down in that. And today, our main goal is just kind of looking at the Misty World in a broad stroke, going over some very broad things, and then we'll get into the more refined things like going down to the mist and using all the different odds and ends, taming creatures, upgrading your skills, stuff like that. So I want to look at just the 5 basic climactic zones, because not including the mist, you do have a lot of different types of biomes. For example, you have this is a jungle. A little bit farther out would be a jungle edge. This would be mist edge. You have a lot of different little sub biomes, but they're really all classified, at least above the mist, into kind of 5 climactic zones. So the one we're in right now is the tropical zone. This is basically jungles and biomes related to jungles, jungle hills, jungle borders, things like that. And within this biome or this climactic zone type, there's 2 different types of trees that you're going to be finding a lot of. There are these tropic trees, which are pretty much the most common tree that you're going to spot here. But occasionally, as you're exploring, there's another creature. I'll show you a few of these. We'll talk a little bit more about some of the creatures. I'm not going to go too in depth with all the creatures. We will have a quick look at all of them when we talk about animal taming, and cover a lot of them more in depth. But all the mobs and stuff within the mod are pretty straightforward. They run at you and they try to basically do collision damage to you. But over here, this is a rubber tree. These you'll find very uncommonly in these tropical zones, and they're very important. We'll get into why a bit later. Basically, we're going to have to tap these, of course, to get rubber, But we'll get into how that works a bit later. Then if we pop over to, let's go over to the snow. These are going to be the cold climate biomes. And within these, you're going to find things like snow fields, taigas, snow forests, things like that. And there are, 3 different types of trees. There are these. These are foggy pines. These are probably the most common tree that you're going to spot in the cold climate zones. I think I managed to get the world's smallest cold biome. I've only got foggy pines here. This one is not very large at all. You can see, maybe if I go off in this direction. Sometimes you might find an island that is extremely small. It may not have any of the stuff that you're looking for. And it does happen from time to time. Of course, it's all random. Okay, I found one here. What you're looking for, really, ideally, is one of these snowy type forests. You're going to find a lot of tree variety within these. And there's also, in addition to the foggy pines, there are these snow trees. All these trees, we'll get into actually using these and stuff a little bit later, doing the carved wood and things like that. They make great building materials, like absolutely beautiful. But I just want to quickly cover these today in the different climactic zones and what to kind of keep an eye out for in each climactic zone, aside from very specific things like the detox items, which we're going to talk about in a later episode. And then the last tree type that you can find here, I'm actually getting... okay, it's starting to subside. I get a lot of lag in the Misty World sometimes. But you can also find these right here. These are stone trees. These are fairly rare. And they're very important for a reason we'll get into a bit later. But they are pretty rare by comparison. Now, sometimes you'll find them and you'll find packs of them. But it may take a little while to find some. Just a heads up on that. And this will also be the place if you want ice. You're going to be able to get ice here and snow and things like that. If you're in the Misty World and you need snow or you need ice, it'll be readily available in these biomes. Now next up, let's pop over to the hot climate zones. This is going to be savannas, deserts, which is basically what you're going to be seeing. You're going to see this brown grass, you're going to see sand, a few tree types here that you're going to be looking for. You can find these right here. These are umbrella trees. Fairly commonly, and you can also find these right here. These are Araucaria, I guess I'm pronouncing that right, or roughly correct. But you're going to be able to find these here in addition. And aside from that, a few things to look for in these biomes. Now, all biomes are going to have ruins, and we're going to talk a little bit more about ruins at the end of this episode. All climate zones are going to have ruins, so something to keep an eye out for. But in this climate zone, you're going to see lots of deserts with sand, and we're going to get into soil types because there are different soil types and different sand, and gravel even, because if you look at this, it's dry, high porosity, humus contents 4%. We'll talk a little bit more about that. But in addition, you will sometimes find, within these biomes, you'll find kind of dried out clay lakes. And you can see some of the local animals. We have caravans, which there are some animals that are only going to spawn at night. So you will see some other creatures come out in each of the biome types. But it actually took me normally a long amount of time to find this for some reason. But you can see we have this is what used to be like a little pond. It has since dried out and is replaced now with just cracked gray clay. Now something worth noting, which we'll talk a little bit more about these little lakes and stuff, but if you hydrate this area, you'll notice that the sand gets wet and the clay will eventually turn into a hydrated version of clay. So right there you can see virgin gray clay that it has now been replaced with. This is wet as opposed to the cracked, which is dry. And if you take that clay out and leave it out in the sun for a while, it will return to a cracked state once again. So just something worth noting and something kind of interesting there. And if you harvest this clay, you will get clay balls just like harvesting normal clay. Very important for, especially if you're in the Misty World and you're looking for certain resources, because that clay will be useful, and we'll talk about why a bit later. Now moving on. Now next up we have the swampy climate zones, which are going to be things like swamps, swamp forests, as far as the biome types. I think this is a swamp meadow that runs through here. And you can see there's a sloth. Like I said, we'll talk more about the creatures a bit later. You will notice here, though, and you noticed before, sometimes you'll see size variety, and sometimes you'll see color variety with the creatures of the Misty World, which is kind of cool. It adds a lot of like depth and immersion, I think, into the Misty World. But as far as trees that you're looking for, there are these right here. These are trembling trees. You also have these right here, which are poplars, swampy poplars. And then we'll probably have to go a little bit deeper to find the last one, because this is all pretty much swamp plains and swamp forests. This is classified as swampland, so you can see it's got a lot more water and just odds and ends. And this is where you're going to find the weeping trees. They're not rare. You just have to find the very specific kind of sub-biome in this case to find these. And these are weeping trees. Of course, they're based off of weeping willows. The rest of these trees you're going to find easily. Weeping trees, you do have to specifically find the swamp biome in order to find those. And also something worth noting for this biome is you'll find these. These are floating mats, and if we go, if we pop into survival mode here, you'll notice that our speed gets slowed down a lot. This is full speed. That's me sprinting through this. And the reason we get so slow is because of this right here. This is virgin saprol, which does slow us down quite a bit. And if we break this off, we're going to get saprol. And saprol is kind of important because if you take this, if you turn it into a block, and you'll get a wet block from it, then you take that block and you smelt it, you're going to get dry saprol, which can be used to smelt items. Kind of like a mini kind of charcoal. So that is, that is available. And you can also use it for its slowdown effects as well. Because you'll notice that if I place this down just above ground, this is that saprol, you notice I move really slow across it. Now if you place down the dry version, you're going to notice that there is no speed difference. So if you want to use that for building, just let it dry out. This will passively dry out on its own though. Most things that are wet or dry, that kind of have that bit of detail, that not really flavor text, but that text down there that says wet or dry, if you just leave it out of water for a while, it will dry. If you submerge it in water, it will become wet. So just bear that in mind. Just kind of a general mechanic for the Misty World. Now in addition, underneath this floating mat, you're going to find peat down here. And peat is a bit nicer. Once again, it comes in wet and dry varieties, but if you smelt it or if you just leave it out to dry, you get the dry version. You could smelt 12 items with peat as opposed to 8 with the saprol. And then over to the forest for our last kind of climactic zone. The forest, or I'm sorry, not forest, but that's what I marked it as, the temperate zone. This is where you're going to find mixed forests, dense forests, and meadows biomes. And inside of these, you're going to find a few different trees here. We have a deceiver tree, which is kind of similar to birch as far as its coloring, and it grows tall there. You're also going to find foggy oaks, which of course are very similar to oak trees. And then lastly, if we fly around here for just a moment, right there, you see these that kind of stand out. These are prickly trees. And that's the last tree type. Nothing too crazy about these tree types. They don't do really anything super special. And you also will occasionally find these, just large lake biomes. And sometimes you'll see fish inside of these as well. And that's pretty much the climactic zones. Pretty straightforward. I just want to cover all the different base biomes. Once again, we will cover the mist itself as a separate episode, just a total episode about the mist. Now, lastly, I want to talk about, there are ruins that you will find spread out, and they're very noticeable because they're mossy cobble. They're always going to be on the surface layer, and you'll see a wide variety of different types. I'll show you a couple types here. But these ruins, once you find the misty cobble, generally there's going to be loot. But what you have to do is you have to break and actually kind of dig this out a little bit in this case. And you can see that we have found a forest spider hiding down here, as well as kind of like a little grave area. So we can pull these up and you can see there's actually remains down in here. So kind of like an old tomb. Sometimes you'll see urns. We'll check out a couple more of these. Let's see if we can find one with an urn in it so I can show you that. Let me just kill him off real quick. And if we go into game mode S, we can take those remains, we can break these open, and we can find some loot here. We got some ash, some wings, some remains, and we got the advancement, Is It You, Laura? And sometimes you're going to get these. These are grave bugs that bust out of the remains. Oh, and I got an iron sword and some bones, some iron. As you can see, we can get some pretty straightforward stuff from that. And moving on, let's see if we can find another ruin so I can show you kind of an altered layout. Right here, there's 5. No, 6, 7, 8, 9. Well, there's a ton of them here for some reason. But you can see a few different types of ruins here. And some of these you'll notice, like I don't think this one has anything. So as you can see, some of these won't have anything. Like that one doesn't have anything. That one does not have anything. There's a forest runner, by the way. This one here, dig down, and there's a furnace down here with some ash, some iron, some remains, some charcoal. It's not always going to be in this one necessarily, but you kind of have to just dig around and see if you find, you know, this one. Let's see if this one has one. Yeah, this one has one. So there's some remains and some gold. So sometimes digging around and excavating those ruins, definitely worth it. And there is a few other types of ruins within the mod. So sometimes just taking a minute, excavating out a little ruin just to see if it has something, definitely worth doing. This one has a ceramic urn and a cauldron down here. And if we take a look, you can see, let me try to move that. Yeah, you can see the lid actually moves on these. And later on, I'll show you how to make your own ceramic urns and actually paint them and everything. But looking inside of here, there's some pink dye and some iron. Nothing generally too crazy from the ruins, but you can pick up some nice things. Wings especially can be useful within the dimension if you're wanting to make some arrows or something. Those can be quite handy. Most general resources can be obtained within the Misty World. You know, I showed you where to get gravel. I mean, where to get clay. There's gravel in most bodies of water, as well as down in the mist, which you'll see a bit more a bit later, which you can get flint from. You can dig down and get rocks and make cobblestone. You know, just going right down here, there's foggy stone. It's pretty similar to the overworld in a lot of those aspects. So I'm not going to be covering how to basically get started within the mod, but most of your general resources are going to be readily available in really commonsensical kind of places. So anyways, we're going to end this episode out here. This is just kind of a general, broad look at the Misty World, how to get there, and the general biomes and general features of the mod. Next episode, I think we're going to be covering the mist, going down into the mist, making your breathing apparatus, what to find while you're down there, and so on and so forth. So anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. If you did, as always, be sure and hit that like button and go ahead and subscribe if you're not already, to stay updated with when new videos come out, and I hope to see you guys next time. So until then, as always, do take care, stay safe. I'll see you guys then.